Hello everybody, in this video we're going to be discussing the basics of Keyhole, okay? Now if you don't know what that is, it's basically a method that there is for the 3x3, and knowing some concepts from it, you can make some F2L cases easier, okay? So, before we get to that, I'm going to discuss you how Keyhole works. You start by making the cross like you would normally do on a 3x3. You then put in 3 of the edges correctly like this, so that you have one empty spot here. You solve all the corners underneath it using this empty slot here. You then solve your last F2L pair normally with the Friedrich method. Last, you do the last layer the exact same way you do on the Friedrich method. So that's how the Keyhole method works. There's also another way you can use the Keyhole method when doing this. So this way you do it, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of the same idea. You make the cross just like we did with the last one. Instead of putting 3 edges in, you put 3 corners in. You place the 3 edges in properly over those corners, and then you solve the last F2L pair normally with Friedrich, and then you do the last layer normally. Now this method here is not going to make you super fast, but it's very helpful to know some concepts for this if you get F2L cases that you can solve using this method. Now I'm going to explain to you how exactly you use this method here to insert all this. So I'm going to be showing you how to insert an edge and how to insert a corner using this. Starting off with doing the 3 edges first. So what you're going to want to do is, you want to basically insert the edges like you would normally do if there was no corner in there. So pretend this is an F2L pair right here. So you would insert it like this. You could also insert it like this. Or you could pretend these two are getting paired up and insert it like this. So it's really up to you how you insert the edges, but if you know a bit of multi-slotting, you might choose to insert it differently so that you can make your next F2L case easier, okay? So you do that for 3 of the edges. It's pretty intuitive to do that. Now we're going to be taking a concept that's from the beginner's method. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this empty slot right here to put the rest of the corners in. So the way this works is you use D moves to match the spot of the corner right up like this. So what I would then do is I would insert it like that was an F2L pair, and then you'd put it back in. Just to let you know, that edge unintentionally got in there, so just ignore that. Okay, so you just use that spot to insert these 3 corners like this, okay? And don't bother putting the cross back to the way it was until you put in the 3rd piece, because that will just make you do some unnecessary moves, okay? So that will insert all of the corners here, and then you just insert this and do the rest of the cube. When it comes to doing corners first, what you're basically doing is you're inserting the corners like you did in the beginner's method. So if you guys remember how to insert corners using the beginner's method, which you actually should know, you basically just insert 3 of the corners the exact same way that was shown in the beginner's method, just like this, okay? And this time what we're going to do is we are going to use the D layer just like that, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to insert the edges like we did earlier, okay? But instead of pushing the D layer back, we actually have to keep this empty slot right here. So we would actually be doing a move like this or cube rotating, okay? So that's how we would do this. So we'll put that one in, and then we got this one. So now that we got all that, we just insert these 2 pieces and then solve the rest of the cube. So those are the basic Keyhole concepts, okay? Now I'm going to be going through all the different cases that you can get for F2L that using one of these concepts would be helpful with. Alright, so I've set these cubes up here with a whole bunch of different cases that you can use Keyhole to solve easier, okay? So starting with this one right here, okay? So we have this edge here and we have this corner in here. So before this, a lot of people you guys would probably rotate and use the beginner's method. But it's terribly inefficient, okay? So, if there's a slot open, you can use Keyhole to push the corner out and insert the edge, like I showed you earlier, and then push it back, okay? So, the next case that we have here, the edge is in place, and we see we have this corner up here, okay? So, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can insert this case, okay? You can pair it up like that, or you could pair it up like this, okay? Now, both of those actually aren't that bad, but in some cases, Keyhole might be easier, but in other cases, it's easier just to pair it up normally, okay? So, this case I know is a little bit confusing, but there's just some cases in this where it's just easier to do it another way. So, for this here, you would want to move the down layer so that in this slot here, you can insert it, okay? So that way you don't break this one up and then push it back, okay? So that's how you do that. And very similar to that case, we have this one where the corner is like this, okay? Now, for this case here, the easy way to do it is to do the sexy move 3 times to insert it like this, okay? So, but there are a couple cases where you can actually insert it easier using that, okay? And if you're wondering the algorithm I just used, it's the algorithm that goes like this. So, what you do is you bring it out, you do that, like there, that trigger, and then you insert the corner and then push it back. For this case here, this case is the worst case out there for F2L, okay? So this is the one where Keyhole is going to be the most helpful and the most useful, okay? So if you had to choose only one case to do Keyhole with, this would be the one to choose. Okay, so the way you would want to do this one is you would move an empty corner into the spot. You would want to do a sledgehammer, and then you insert the edge and bring it back, okay? So that's a lot easier than taking the pair out, like breaking it up, rotating, and inserting. This last case right here is where the edge is here, but the corner is not solved, okay? So for this case here, what a lot of you do is you break it up like this and insert it, which actually isn't too bad, okay? But if you have a slot very close that's free, it might be faster just to push the corner into the empty slot and solve it like that. Now when it comes to the last F2L pair, Keyhole obviously will not be an option if you get one of these cases. So if that's the case, you're just going to have to go with the regular algorithm to solve it. If all the edges are solved and you have 2 or more corners still to be put in, or if it's the other way around, it's actually easier if you just break up one of these, okay? And what it'll do is it'll also give you a better case, okay? Because certain cases are easier, okay? So what you can do for this one is you can move this into position and take that one out, okay? And as you can see, doing that, I got this easy case here, but it's not going to guarantee you'll always get that case. Using this concept is extremely useful when you have corners in there and not edges, because if you were to just insert this case normally, you'd have a terrible case here, and you would also have a terrible case after, okay? So if you were to just insert it using Keyhole, it'll give you a decent case. It may not be the best case, but at least it's better than the one you had earlier. Another extremely useful use of Keyhole is this. So say you have an edge in the slot and it is flipped properly. Well, it may not be flipped properly when you insert it over here, but it's in the place where you can pair up the corner like this. Here's what you can do. So instead of taking it out and using Keyhole to insert it later, what you can do instead is you can pair these two up here. You can take it out like that, and then you have this pair, and then you just insert it. If the corner's in a separate slot, you can also do the exact same thing by inserting it like that. One way you can multi-slot using this technique where you insert the corner like this and in a incorrect slot is you can actually insert the edge into that slot, okay? So what we can do is we place it in the back, and what you're doing is you're essentially connecting these two pieces, and it'll insert it into the slot, and then you just insert the other pair like that. Using this method is extremely useful if the corner is already in its slot, okay? This can also be used when inserting a corner, okay? So when you pair it up like this, you can also insert a corner in there and insert it. And just like with the last one, it's extremely useful if the edge is already in its spot. Another thing that you can do is if you have a corner and an edge in spots, okay, but their edge and corner like this are not solved, what you can do is you can actually multi-slot using Keyhole. So the way you do this is you pair them up so that both the empty pieces are right here, and you can actually solve the F2L pairs like this, like you would normally do in Friedrich, okay? So it doesn't happen very often, but if it ever comes up, it's very useful to do that because if you were to just insert this corner here like that, you'd have an extremely bad case for your last one there, okay? So if you ever get that, it's extremely useful, and I have a video all about this, so if you want to see that, the link will be in the description. Now when you're doing solves, I would highly advise if you would stay away from using the entire keyhole method, okay? So you should only really use it if the case you're solving is one of those cases I showed you, okay? So I would not recommend after you make the cross insert 3 edges, 3 corners, and so on, okay? So it'll just cost you a lot of time. However, if 2 or more edges happen to be in their spots unintentionally when you solve the cross, what you can do is you can actually just insert those corners using the keyhole method, which will make your F2L a lot easier, and you'll be able to look ahead a lot easier for them. One place where keyhole can really come in handy is when doing the extended cross. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with what extended cross is, it's basically where you solve a cross, but you solve your first F2L pair while you're doing that, okay? So when you're doing that, what you sometimes end up doing is you can take down an edge with you. So when looking in your inspection, you can try to track the edge, and when you bring your last edge for the cross down, you can bring the edge with it, okay? And when you do that, you'll have the corner outside of it before you bring the D layer back to align it, okay? So you can use the keyhole like this to finish the extended cross because it's already put there. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you guys. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll make more of these videos. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on my next video.